Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to COASTER-net Updates. We've got some breaking news out of Japan today, where we've learned that Sansei Technologies, the owners of SNS worldwide, have purchased another coaster manufacturer in Vekoma. Now, this is bringing together two of the largest, maybe not largest, but two very large roller coaster companies and theme park amusement companies together. Also interesting is it's finally bringing together the remnants of the old Arrow, which SNS holds, and now Vekoma are together under the same umbrella. So, Danny, what are some of your initial thoughts here on this merger?
Well, my very first thought was the irony of it, right? Because we talked about this, and if you're familiar with the Legacy of Arrow documentary that came out a few years back, it talks about how, you know, it's quite possible that the demise of Arrow came because of Vekoma. Vekoma was like a farm manufacturing company, and they got into the roller coaster game, and Arrow actually assisted them in figuring out how to do roller coasters. And, some people always comment that Arrow and Vekoma track are very, very hard to tell apart when you're talking about like the Vekoma boomerangs versus an Arrow looper. And that's because, well, they are the same track gauge, and Arrow assisted Vekoma in, building roller coasters at the very start, which is why they look nearly identical. And that was a big part of, maybe not the sole part, but a big part of why Arrow eventually went out of business and lost a lot of their business in the 90s, I'm sure. So my first thought was the irony in that now, when Arrow went bankrupt, SNS purchased their assets. So now it comes full circle there. That was my initial thought. My new thought here is, for those of you who don't know, I work for a company that was bought by Toyota in 2003, and they still let us do our own thing, but they've implemented improvements into our the engineering side of things and also the production side of things. We build forklifts here in Green, New York, and we still kind of do our own thing. We're separate from Toyota, but they still, implement what they call TPS, the Toyota Production System here, which in the last 15 years has made my company very, very efficient and has drastically reduced the number of defects in our products. I suspect that we'll see something very similar here. I don't expect Vekoma to just all of a sudden stop what they're doing. I expect that, they're doing very, very well right now, which I think might be part of why SNS Sansei has gone after them. They're getting a lot of contracts to do rides, particularly overseas right now. They're not doing a whole heck of a lot over here. Actually, the argument could be made that SNS is doing more over here with rides like the Free Flies and some of the El Loco type rides. They did a handful of wood coasters about a decade ago. None of them have seemed to be that successful. I think the best one that people watching our show might be familiar with is the Timber Falls Avalanche / Hellcat. Which, even though I think, you and I have both ridden that one and think it's a pretty good ride, some people don't like how rough it is. SNS, their wood coasters don't have a good reputation for maintaining their smoothness over the years. But I think with how many roller coasters Vekoma is doing, you were talking about this, this might be Sansei's way of getting into the roller coaster game and getting some of that cake, a piece of that cake. Because they've done dark rides for Disney. We've seen, SNS has always been successful with the drop tower rides. So, I think this kind of, stakes their claim in another arena where, Sensei had done some small coasters and SNS has done some small coasters, and they experimented with the air launch a couple times, but nothing really big came out of that. And, I think the Dompa is still the one that's hanging around there. But this kind of solidifies SNS Sansei and now Vekoma in the roller coaster game, because now they have a portion of a very big player in that field.
Well, and like you said, the SNS coasters as of late have been pretty small. That, like you said, the Free Flies, Vekoma the stuff they're doing over in Europe.
This hyper coaster, that Hyperion ride that everyone's talking about, that's a big one.
Like, that's a big one. The Lek coaster looks amazing in Poland, with the barrel roll through the station. Like, this is not the old Vekoma. That Vekoma's been kind of like, the running joke amongst coaster enthusiasts over the last 20 years with the SLCs and the rough loopers and the boomerangs. But this is not the same Vekoma. Vekoma, as of late, has really been building some real innovative stuff that looks really outstanding. So I'm pretty excited about the future of Vekoma, especially if Sansei can get Vekoma out more, expand the production maybe, and maybe get some stuff over here in America that we see S&S building stuff. We see them having a relationship with Six Flags and RMC, and you wonder if this is going to expand. You wonder, because what we saw with Sansei used to build roller coasters on their own. Then when they bought Arrow in S&S, and S&S bought Arrow, then S&S started taking over the roller coasters. And the S&S coasters of 2017, maybe not one of the highlights for S&S. That you look at Merlin's Mayhem, that still has yet to open, this family inverted coaster that S&S was.
Which consequently looks a lot like one of those Vekoma family inverted coasters, like a Freedom Flyer. It's got the same. It's a little bit different track, but.
We've documented the Gale Force issues with, you rode Gale Force last year. Pretty rough ride for a brand new ride. They are now retracking most of the ride. So far S&S in 2017, has a very iffy, track record here. So maybe with this addition of Vekoma, we're going to see Vekoma take over a lot of this coaster manufacturing. Who knows what's going to happen here? I'm excited by it. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity here. Like you said, Vekoma has been a punchline for many, many years in the coaster enthusiast world. And I think we've kind of moved away from that. I think we've moved away from the Vekoma that's known for the boomerangs and the hang and bangs and, these bad coasters that people don't want to ride, like the Goodricks is always the one overseas that people like to point at. Vekoma's doing some cool stuff. The question here is going to be, does this, do we start to see Vekoma, S&S, whatever, collaborating on some more 4D, like true 4D coasters like X2 and Ijunaika and Dynaconda, I think is the other big one over in China. And I think this probably gets S&S and Sansei some of their products, maybe like the drop towers and whatnot, and maybe some of the dark rides that they do. Maybe that opens up a bigger European market for them. And on the flip side, maybe this also gets Vekoma into the Japan market a little bit more, where Sansei has kind of, had a good portion of the market over there for some time. I think there's a lot of good things that can come out of this. I don't expect any huge sweeping changes. Vekoma's not going to do coasters. No, that's not what we're going to see here. But I would not be surprised if we start to see rides from this new collaboration start to pop up more. I mean, when Chance took over Morgan. A few years ago, we got, like Lightning Run, but we didn't see any big drastic changes. So I think we'll start there, and maybe we'll see a few new products here and there, and then it might expand as we get bigger.
Well, that definitely is the enthusiast dream right there, is more 4D coasters all over the place, because there's right here in America, there's only one. And if you want to ride a different one, you got to go pretty far to go ride it. So I think a lot of people would love to see a few more 4D coasters pop up here and there, because those things.
Yeah, but hopefully they don't cost $50 million and put the company out of business like they did last time we built one here. So, bring it full circle.
Well, as always, we will keep you updated here on all the developments between Vekoma and Sansei and S&S. And as always, Ride Warriors, ride on.
See you next time, guys.